Like many older gamers, I am obsessed with retro style of games, and every time I see one, I have to give it at least a try, and there's a brand new one on the PlayStation 4 known as Downwell. But is this game an instant 8-bit classic, or is it just another retro game that's trying to cash in on a fad? In Downwell, you're playing as a nameless character who jumps down a giant well at the very beginning of the game. From that point on, you're going through randomly generated floors, battling lots of different monsters, collecting treasure and power-ups, occasionally buying a few things from the shop, trying to keep your health up as you make your way all the way down to the very bottom of the well to meet with a giant monster at the end. Well, every time you boot up the game, it is randomly generated. There are 13 stages, though, that have the same themes every time you play, such as overall design and type of enemies that you'll be battling against. For example, you'll start off in the caves battling bats and turtles and frogs, and then you'll be going to the catacombs battling skeletons and different ghosts and other demons before making it farther and farther into the game, and every section that you make it to adds different enemies as well as new difficulties in order for you to conquer. You start off the game with only 4 health, and once that runs out, it's game over and you're starting all the way from the very beginning. Even if you make it to the final boss, if you die there, you're going all the way back to the start and have to start the game all over again. In order to blast your way through all of the evil monsters that have invaded this well is your gun boots. Easily the coolest aspect about Downwell. You're moving downwards in the game at all times. There's no left or right movement except for when you're entering either the shop or one of the various side rooms in the game. For the most part, you're heading straight downwards and firing at enemies directly below you. Now you can land on tops of the heads of certain different enemies and bounce off of them, instantly defeating them, but only enemies that are actually colored white are ones that you can actually destroy this way. And there's plenty of enemies that are going to be red that if you land on them, you just end up hurting yourself. And considering health is at a premium when it comes to Downwell, you want to make sure you don't accidentally land on the wrong colored enemies. The gun boots, though, have ammo, and you'll notice your ammo on the right side of the screen, and it'll deplete depending upon what type of gun you're using. You have your default gun, which starts off with 8 charges, or 8 bullets, and you recharge or reload every time you either bounce on top of an enemy's head or you land on some kind of platform, either a box or the solid ground, or even if you bounce off of an object, it will still count and allow you to recharge your gun. There's a load of various different weapons, though, that you can find in the game in order to aid you. Entering into the various side rooms during the course of the game will freeze time, which is just a really cool effect. All monsters are frozen once you enter the little time sphere that is surrounding these side rooms and also the shop. One of the other big things to really help you during your Downwell playthrough will be the power-ups. You earn 1 every time you end up beating a level. At the end of a level, you'll get a choice between 3 different randomly chosen power-ups. You'll pick one, then move on to the next level, and after completion of that stage, you'll get another 3 choices to pick from. Sometimes you'll be torn between 2 particular power-ups, and you'll have to pick one and then hope the other ones come up later on in different levels once you beat them. Some of these power-ups will really benefit you, though, and other ones are just kinda okay, so you always have to pick and choose wisely at the end of a particular stage. Some of these power-ups include ones where you jump on enemies' heads, causing an explosion effect. You'll also have ones where you collect gems or destroy boxes, in which case bullets will fly up. You'll have empty gun cases from the bullets that you're spraying everywhere actually be able to do damage. One of the best ones also is, anytime you defeat an enemy, they will leave a carcass behind. Sometimes you can actually grab the carcass and eat it using the knife and fork power-up, in which case you may get lucky enough to get extra health that way. Easily one of the more beneficial ones if you can get it early on in your run. You'll also get other health upgrades, which will of course increase your health, or one of which will actually give you 1 health back, but also increase the amount of items you get to pick from at the end of a particular stage. The apple, which will instantly bring back 4 of your health. The health in the game also allows you to upgrade your health from the initial 4. Anytime you have 4 health and you earn an extra health, you'll get a notch on your menu. Once you get 4 of those, you'll get an increase, and you can keep doing that as many times as you're able to get extra amounts of health throughout the course of the run. There's also items that will instantly increase the total amount of health you currently have, but this is one of the many ways to do that. Gems in the game can also be used after completing a run of Downwell, whether you beat the game or whether you end up dying. Your gems that you have left over are then racked up, and the more of the gems you have will unlock new unlockables. These are different play modes as well as different palette color swaps for the game, and there's a large amount of these palette color swaps for you to unlock, which changes the entire color scheme of the game. It starts off with just the white and red, but you'll get all kinds of crazy blues and pastels and lavenders, and you'll also get stuff like Game Boy or Virtual Boy color schemes. Some of these color schemes actually ended up aiding in my overall gameplay. I felt like with different colors things stood out differently, so I was able to do better. And then there's other ones that just make everything really hard to differentiate from one another and ended up actually hurting me more than helped. But there's a lot of them to unlock, so it makes it worthwhile to have gems at the end of a run so you can try to unlock new things. The different styles of play that you can end up unlocking change the way the game ends up going down. For example, you'll get one like Boulder, which will increase the amount of health you start with, but you'll only be able to pick from 2 power-ups at the end of a level. You'll have the handstand ability, which eliminates all of the upgrade power-ups that you're able to get, but items in the shop end up being cheaper. You'll also have it where there's only the gun modules that you will end up finding, and shops are far less frequent. So some of these modes can really end up changing up the game, and I definitely recommend trying out Boulder, as I found this the easiest way to play through Downwell. Downwell is a great example of a game that looks very simple, but is extremely addictive and challenging. Every time I played, my goal was just to make it a little bit farther. First time I booted it up, I couldn't even make it out of the very first level, but then I was able to beat the first stage, and then make it to the next, and slowly but surely I was able to get through the caverns, make it to the catacombs, finding the new enemies and new challenges that awaited me. Getting past the catacombs to the aqua-filled aquifer stages, where you're watching out for your oxygen meter, as well as fighting all the monsters that are trying to take you down. And then the final areas where you have no ground that's safe to land on. You just have to keep bouncing off of the various little objects and keep firing to keep yourself afloat from running into the enemies. And then there's the boss at the end of it, which put up a huge challenge. It took 3 or 4 attempts for me to make it to that boss before I was finally able to figure it out and be able to take him down. And then once I did all that, it unlocked hard mode, presenting the game with even more challenge, adding new enemies, and giving the harder enemies earlier on in particular areas. You also have new challenges for those stages, like more spikes in the catacomb, or less ways to pick up oxygen in the water-filled levels. Beating the game on the hard mode is definitely an accomplishment for sure. While Downwell is of course going to be a relatively short experience, your first playthrough may only last a minute or two before you end up biting the bullet. But once you complete a run, it can be done in about 15 or 20 minutes or so in order to complete all the levels. But trying to get good enough and figuring out everything in order to get to that point will definitely take you time. And then there's the hard mode that you'll definitely want to put the effort in to try to complete. I was actually shocked at just how addictive it ended up becoming. After playing the game for 5.5, 6 hours, I still wanted to keep trying and get farther and do new and interesting things, trying to unlock all the trophies in the game. Downwell is probably one of my favorite games I have played in the last few months, and it's something that's so simplistic you wouldn't think there'd be much to it, but man is it a lot of fun. Downwell is available on the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation Vita for $4.99, which is one of my few gripes about the game. It's available on Steam as well as iOS devices for only $2.99, so they increased the price for whatever reason when it came to releasing it on PlayStation, but still you're not going to be breaking the bank when it comes to this game, and I can still recommend it to anyone who is a big retro fan. I really love this game. In fact, I actually want to go back and play even more of it once I get done this review. In the end, I'm going to be giving Downwell an 8 out of 10. It's simple, it's fun, it's addictive, and I can see myself putting much more hours into it than some of the bigger budget $60 releases I've been playing. But anyway guys, that's going to wrap up this review. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.